Hi, welcome back to the Z Tribe Africa YouTube channel. My name is Adiola Oyekule, your teens coach. So today we are discussing a topic that I find quite sensitive. We are talking about factors that affect the decisions and behavior of teenagers. Oftentimes that we desire to hear, we hear parents say things like, oh, I sacrificed so much for this child, I taught them so well, I did my best, and at the end of the day it looks like they are not turning out the way you would want them to be. So what are those factors that actually affect teenagers, how they behave, how they conduct themselves, apart from the heavy work that you have already done in the home front? That's what we are talking about on this video. So let's dig in. Number one on that list is individual or their personal temperament. You know how all of us have our different behavioral characteristics and traits that separates us from one another. So teenagers or young people, even children, everybody really has different personality traits. Some of them that we might be familiar with, we have four major types as described by an author called Tim LaHaye, and it talks about the sanguine, the melancholy, the choleric characteristics traits, and then the phlegmatic. Those are four different traits, right? So in a household you might find these four traits almost at play in each of the individuals in that household, and that would affect the way each one of them would behave. A mother can be someone who likes to keep to herself, and everything has to be prim and proper and quiet, and you can have a sanguine child that likes to be jumpy and everywhere, life of the party and all. No matter how you try to mold that child to take exactly the kind of character that you want them to be, they will still find a way to express themselves in a way that is innate to them. So that's one of the factors that affect how a child actually turns out to be. Another one is peer influence. Apart from what you do in the household or what you do in the home front, when the child goes to school or when they go to church or any social gathering that they find themselves, they meet with their peers. And the teenage brackets, the teenage years, are those years where your child is seeking validation. They are forming their identity, and somehow they want to conform to what their peers and the things like them are that they are doing. So if your child happens to find themselves or somehow have selected friends whose values do not align with yours, they can end up choosing to behave in the way that their friends would, so that they can gain acceptance. That's not to say that that's a good thing or that's a bad thing, but I just want you to know that that's a major factor. In fact, research has it that during the the teenage years, peer influence is one of the strongest influence on your child. So you want to be making sure that you know who your child is friends with and where they're going and what they're doing. Not like you want to monitor them all the time, but encourage them to choose their friends and relationships wisely so that they can continue to go on the good path that you have laid out for them. Another influence that is so common in these days is media and technology. There's no way that we can erase the influence that this has on teenagers or even adults ourselves. You find yourself walking on the street and you hear a song, and then that song somehow sticks to your head and you start singing that song unconsciously. These things have a way of getting into us without us even knowing. And so if your child or your teenager is exposed to songs and media, social media, and things that are not in alignment with your family values, there's a high chance that those influences will start playing out in how they conduct themselves. So let us also watch it when they listen to songs that are vulgar languages or that are you know, accepting certain behaviors that you would not naturally approve of. You know, we hear songs where everything they're talking about is how to be, you know, sexually active and all of those things, how to smoke, how to drink. If your children are exposed to this too often, no matter what you're saying, even if you're saying the direct opposite, there's a chance that they accept this other influence that the media has on them and now begin to display that as their characteristic trait. Okay, so yes, that is another factor that you need to look out for as a parent. Another influence is school environment, closely tied with the peer influence that I talked about earlier. When your child is going to a school, you want to make sure that aside the academic prowess of that school, which is great to watch out for, you are also looking out to make sure that that school upholds the highest moral standards as it relates to your own personal and family values. Some schools encourage things that are not, you know, not necessarily unlawful, but they are not things that you would approve of as an individual or as a parent. So you want to make sure that you are also looking out for that as well. Another factor that affects how teenagers turn out is their mental health factors. Some people have undiagnosed mental health situations. I would not call it a problem because, you know, it depends on how you choose to view it, on how you choose to work with it, you know. But let's just know that there are certain mental health challenges that teenagers go through, and in this climb a lot of them go undiagnosed, and because of that they act in certain way. I once know a boy who was always very hyper, always very aggressive in some way, always doing a lot of things. And for me as a professional, I could tell that these are traits that relate to a certain mental health issue called ADHD. But because the parent is unaware of this diagnosis, they can feel like their child is just choosing to be naughty or choosing to be destructive or choosing to disobey them, not knowing that there's something that is influencing that behavior. So if you see that your child is acting in certain ways that is not in congruence with anything that they see in their environment or anything that you've programmed into them, you might want to look at the psychological aspects of things to make sure that your child does not have ADHD, or they are not even depressed. That's also a thing, you know, and or that they don't have anxiety disorder. These are some of the some mental health diagnosis that presents in subtle ways that can easily get missed, especially when they are in their mildest form, right? So you also maybe want to check out to see if that, oh, this child is free of any mental health diagnosis. Now that sounds like a huge thing for someone that is a Nigerian or an African, but it's something to really consider if you see that there are trends of your child acting in ways that you do not like or appreciate. You may just want to go take the child for an assessment just to rule that out. Another that is closely tied to that is trauma, something that people use loosely nowadays. You say, I'm traumatized, I'm triggered. You hear that a lot, and you hear that often in this age, but it's actually a thing. Some things in a household, people can go through the same thing and turn out differently. Let's say something as serious as the loss of a parent, right? One child might turn out with that as a fuel to power them to want to do better, to make good decisions for their life, to to excel academically and socially and all whatnot, while another child in the same household can take that experience and it would mean that that child is withdrawn, that child is depressed, that child is missing a parent and all of that. So yes, trauma is a real thing. No matter how, I know it's abused, like people don't have mental resilience nowadays and they just say, oh, I'm just traumatized, you know. But really it's an actual thing that you may want to look out or look into to see if there's any traumatic events that might have altered the programming of that child that you are unaware of. So yes, that's another thing, trauma. Another one also is the environment that your child is in. Yes, I know that some people might not be able to afford living in an environment where they are in total control of what goes on within the perimeters of their own neighborhood. But yes, your environment also determines a lot how your child is going to turn out. There's a saying that children are like sponges, they soak up everything that they see around them. I heard a sad story, or I read rather online a sad story of a woman who is living in a neighborhood that is not, that you would call the slum, right? But they made sure that their children are not exposed to that environment, and that they are all usually kept, kept to their chest. They don't leave the room, they read all day and all that in their one room apartment. Sadly, it turned out that a neighbor in that same, compound impregnated the child. And they are wondering, this woman has done so much. She has kept the child safe to the best of her ability, and then the child still ends up being impregnated by their married neighbor. I mean, that's that's sad. It's mind-blowing. But it's a thing, it's something that can happen. So now, if you find yourself in that kind of environment where unpleasant things are happening and you don't want your child to soak up that, instead of only shielding them away from interacting with that environment, it's better to educate them on what is happening and why they should make significant decisions and choices that would make sure that they don't end up looking like the statistics of what that environment presents, or that what that neighborhood presents. So it's not enough for you to only say, oh, my child is going to be locked up indoors, and then they turn out to just be naive, not knowing what to do when situations present themselves. They don't know how to say no. They are not street smart. If you find yourself living in a place that you can't change right now, it's better to, in fact, expose them to it. And when I mean expose them to it, I don't mean that just allow them to just be, philandering about the neighborhood. But yes, educate them. Let them know that this is a real thing that actually happens. And when you are in a certain situation, this is how to do, this is how to behave. You should talk to this person, or do this or do that. So you need to educate them, not just shield them and protect them and think that they are safe. No, sometimes the story doesn't end up that way. So yes, environmental factor, very, very, very key. I'm a Christian and it influences a lot of things that I do. So when I read the Bible, it teaches me a lot of values, it teaches me a lot of things, it gives me wisdom. And I would recommend that you also do the same for your children as well, especially if you are a Christian. Don't just be a Christian by Sunday. Try to make sure that your spiritual home front is built up, and that your children actually understand what it means to have a relationship with God, and also help them to cultivate and grow a relationship with God. And it won't just happen by talks, it's going to happen by action. It's going to happen by them seeing you do that, and then they will emulate it. It's going to happen by them seeing you going through a tough time and you talking to God about it, and when the solution comes, you share the testimony with them as well, so that they know that this God that we are serving is actually alive. Because we hear a lot of narratives these days and we don't know. God help us, really. So yes, carry them along in your spiritual growth. Don't leave them behind. Don't say that they are young or too small to understand these things. In fact, Jesus tells us that God is interested. In fact, he says that we should have a heart like a child, because when you have that kind of heart, it's easy to receive some things. Not now that you already have your own ideologies and you feel like you are thinking logically about a lot of things, and you know that Christianity a lot of times you cannot use logic to understand it. You can only understand by the spirit, right? So yes, this is the best time to expose them to spiritual warfare and spiritual growth. And I hope that you are able to do that, and that your child grows as a result of it. And then finally is family influence as well. And we started this video by talking about how it's possible for you to have done so much in the family, and then other factors affect the growth of your child. So yes, family is also a key factor that plays out. Family is the basic unit of socialization. So when your family front is strong enough, all these other factors can now come into it, and then you can grow from there. You can discuss all of these things. You can challenge narratives. You can talk to your child about things and let them understand and grow from there. In our next video, I'm going to be sharing some tips based on the factors that I've mentioned, so that you don't feel like, oh, all of these factors, not a lot of them that I can control. So what should I do? Should I just let it be? No. So yeah, in another video, I'm going to be addressing what you can do in to control the effects of these factors that I have discussed in this video. I hope that you have been well informed and educated, and I hope that this helps you to think further about the decisions that you are making for yourself and your child. And I pray that God blesses your home. If you are yet to do so, please make sure that you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Yes, we answer a lot of questions when it comes to growing teenagers and helping them live an awesome life. So please do share this video with your friends and family, and then see you in the next video. See ya. Bye.